I, 33 male, was married to my ex-wife, Emily, who was 27 as of the time we got married. When I met Emily, I was working as a contractor for a new construction site I was working at, and Emily just happened to live in one of the houses close to the site. The first few days after I started working there, I didn't notice Emily because I was too engrossed with the job, but after other guys at the site started talking about her, that's when I noticed her. I think the thing that really stood out about her was her beautiful smile, her golden yellow hair, and her honey brown eyes that made me go crazy whenever she stood in the sun. At that time, she worked as a teacher for one of the schools in the city, so I mostly saw her whenever she returned. Emily and I became friends, and we began to hang out more. I got to know her better, and we fell in love. I found out that she was not just beautiful on the outside, but she was beautiful within too. She was kind, and I think that had to do with the fact that she dealt with children. When our relationship moved further, she eventually met my parents, and I met hers too, and about a year and some months later, we got married. I still remember our wedding day like it was yesterday, but it hurts me so much that I have to let that memory go. After Emily and I got married, she moved into my apartment, and we began to live like a couple. She did not want to move in while we were dating because her parents were a bit religious and it was against their rules or something for an unmarried man and woman to live together, so I didn't have an issue with that. The first few months of our marriage were blissful. Emily was great in bed, she took good care of the house and me, and I helped out too. At that moment after we got married, my job demanded my attention. I could go to a construction site for a whole week, and the next week I would just have one day to myself. Emily, on the other hand, really enjoyed the breaks and long summer breaks from school, and whenever she was at home, I just wished I could spend more time with her. Luckily for me, the same week her school break began, we had completed the work on the site I was working on, and coincidentally, I was due for my leave. This was great news for me, because I didn't get to spend the kind of quality time I wanted with her, and thankfully we were both going to spend time together. Out of excitement, I bought 2 tickets for us to go somewhere fun and spend 1 week away from home, and Emily was so excited. It was going to be a mini vacation for the both of us. 2 days later, we traveled and things were beginning to fall into place. Emily made a list of things we were going to do during the whole week, and one of them included taking pictures at a very popular place in the city we visited. It was in the process of taking pictures that I discovered something very shocking about my wife. She had given me her phone to take pictures of her, and at the same moment she did, a notification from a dating app popped up and it read, "Emily, you have a message from Isaac." I took a couple of pictures of her, cleared the notification, and returned her phone. I took note of the name of the dating app, and I wrote it on my phone so I would not forget. You should know that by this time, we were married for 2 years plus, and we had almost been together for 4 years, so the last place I expected Emily to be was a dating app. Finding this out ruined the rest of our vacation, as I had to cook up a lie and say that my company needed me back, and they promised to make up for it. When we returned, I found a way to get her phone, take screenshots of her conversation with the guy, and I sent them directly to myself on WhatsApp, and then I deleted every trace on both ends. After I did this, I told her we could go and visit her parents because it had been long, and she agreed. At her parents' house, we were all in the living room when I handed prints out of her conversation with her lover on the dating app to every member of her family, including Emily herself. I told them it was a project I was working on, and I needed their opinions on it. When Emily recognized the conversation, she was shocked and began to cry when she knew that I knew. She said she did it because I was barely home and she needed a companion, and the guy always returned her messages fast, unlike me. Well, in the end, her parents disowned her, and they were so disappointed in her. That wasn't all. The AP she was cheating on me with also left her when he found out she was going through a divorce. Emily believed he loved her, but he was only there for the sex, and after he got it, he left. In the end, Emily suffered alone. She lost both me and her family. She tried to come back to me twice, but I promised her the next time she tried it, she'd be resting in jail. OP, I am sorry to hear Emily treated you that way. It's quite surprising that she chose to cheat on you while you were away trying to make ends meet. Women can be a handful sometimes, and they can do the most unimaginable things. She broke your trust because of some random dude she met online because he responded to her faster, which is crazy. It's a good thing you gave her a taste of her own medicine. Now she'll also know what it feels like to disappoint someone, and her family did right by disowning her. It's sad that she took your love for granted and decided to ruin what you both shared. Thank you for sharing your story with us, and I am happy you have nothing to do with her anymore. Now, let's move on to the next story for today. My wife and I started dating right after college. She was 24 and I was 26. Taylor and I happened to come from the same state, and I just can't explain how, but I loved her. I loved everything about Taylor, and her family was quite fond of me. Aside from my mom, who was very important in my life, Taylor was the next most important person, and to be honest, I loved her more than my best friend, Rick. I know it was unfair to say that, especially since Rick had always been a part of my life since childhood, but what I had for Taylor was just amazing, and I believed she loved me too, but the rest of my story is messy. After Taylor and I dated for about a year, we got married. She always wanted a beach wedding, so we had a simple wedding, and Rick was my best man. Taylor and Rick got along very well. There was no reason for her not to. In fact, I used to jokingly tell her that if anything bad happened to me, she had Rick to fall back on because I trusted him with my life and with my wife. I worked with a pharmaceutical company, and I'd love to say that it was raining money for me. Our products were well known, and it was selling well, and because I had been working part-time with them while I was in college, after college, I was able to grow to a top position that came with great pay. Rick was a doctor. It was both of our childhood dreams to be in the medical field. I wanted to work where the medications were made, and Rick always wanted to be a doctor. I don't really get how, but in some way, I earned more than he did, and I was able to provide everything that Taylor wanted. If she wanted vacations, trips, expensive shopping, or anything she mentioned, it was all hers. Most of the time, I'd just drop by a jewelry shop and get her some expensive jewelry just so she could smile ear to ear. I loved Taylor that much, and I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. I was ready to do anything for her, but I guess that was not what Taylor wanted. Rick knew how much I valued Taylor, right from our dating days up till when we were married. Taylor also knew that I didn't have so many people in my life. It was just me and Rick from the beginning until she came along, yet the two of them chose to treat me in the most horrible way. In the beginning, I didn't suspect there was anything going on between Rick and my ex-wife. They were close because of the bond we all shared, so whatever was going on, I believed it was just them being friends. Taylor and Rick's wife were equally close, but it was still nothing compared to the closeness between Rick and Taylor. I just used to believe it was because Rick's wife came late to the picture and Taylor was already fond of him. It didn't really make sense until one night, while Taylor and I were making love, she unconsciously said, "Go easy on me, Rick," and when she realized what she had said, she pretended it was a slip of tongue. I was too smart, and there was no way I was buying that crap. If she called another man's name while I was trying to make love to her, then it only meant one thing: she had been screwing him behind my back. I got up immediately and asked her to explain what she had just said, and as crazy as it sounds, my guts were right. Taylor had cheated on me with Rick, and it had been going on for the past months, and I'd barely noticed a thing. She said it all began when I traveled one time for a very important meeting, and I asked Rick to look after her for me. When Rick came over and the conversation led to another, she didn't know how it happened. The more she told the story, the more irritated I was. I could not believe that my wife would stoop so low to sleep with my best friend, and my best friend, on the other hand, found my wife attractive. We were only married for 2 years, and we were still very young in our marriage. I had noticed Rick and my wife had become closer after I returned from my 4-day meeting, but I didn't think it had anything to do with them sleeping together. I was so broken, and for the first time in a long time, I cried. That was the highest form of betrayal I had ever experienced. I confronted Rick about it, and after so much back and forth, he affirmed that he was having an affair with Taylor, and it was the devil's work. Rick's betrayal was the worst. He would never have forgiven me if I had anything to do with his wife, but he repeatedly slept with my wife, and she allowed it. I noticed she had become colder towards me, Every conversation was always about Rick, and if I tried to change the topic, she would find a way of bringing him back into it. I knew that if I kept any of those too close to me, they could lead to my death. So I cut both of them out of my life without thinking twice. I divorced Taylor. I was better off without her, and I moved out of town. When Rick's wife found out what he had done, she divorced him too, and I was thinking he would end up with Taylor, but he didn't. He cheated on her with another woman just a month after his divorce, and he could not sustain the kind of lifestyle I gave to Taylor. It's been 3 years since this happened, and I have been happier with the two of them out of my life. Taylor tried to call me twice. She cried bitterly and admitted that she fully regrets what happened, and she promised it would never happen again, but I couldn't just take her back. Up till now, I still feel the hurt and heartbreak, and maybe if she did not call Rick's name in bed, maybe we would still be together and they would still be cheating on me. But as painful as it was, I'm glad it happened. OP, I can't imagine what it feels like to be betrayed by your wife and best friend. That must really hurt. I'm happy you cut them out of your life completely, because if the two most important people in your life could break your trust and treat you in that way, then they can bring harm to you. I also know that there are no words I can say that will make you feel better, but I admire your strength and courage. It was wicked of Taylor and your best friend to do that to you. I know you loved her and you only wanted to make her happy, but she took that trust and broke it. I know it's tough, but you're going to be fine. You just need to take your time to heal properly and love yourself too. Never neglect self-love. I hope you're doing better now, and thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, and thank you for all the support.